Hi, everybody. It's Mr. Bob again as we continue on with our new book, Street Shadows by Claire Gilchrist. Chapter 2 is play, as it compares and contrasts play between Pika and Scruff, our two pup coyotes. One of the things I'd like to do is compare and contrast. In other words, what things are similar and what things are dissimilar between the two pups, and how do they play, and how do they feel when they're playing. Okay, so we'll continue on with chapter 2, play. Pika. Hey guys, check this out. Pika called across the hillside. She grabbed the golf ball in her mouth and ran back toward her three siblings. I fought a golf ball. She found it harder to talk with the ball between her teeth. She arrived back at the den site and jumped on her brother Dane. The ball fell out of her mouth and rolled behind him. She leapt and tried to pounce on it, but missed and landed instead on his tail. Ouch! Quit it, Pika, Dane growled, rolling over to his other side. Oops. She shook her head, blinking a few times. The ball seemed blurry to her. That must have been why she missed it. She scratched at her eye a few times. What is it? Sage asked sleepily, yawning as she cracked an eye open. Pika forgot about her eye, seeing a potential playmate. She grabbed the ball and dropped it in front of her sister. One of the humans left this behind. I found it down by the bushes at the bottom of the hillside, she explained. Want to come and play? Silence. In the heat of the afternoon, all her siblings wanted to do was lie in the shade and nap. Finally, Sage took pity on her sister. Hey, Pika, you should nap with us now, and we can play later. You know we need to rest up on our hunting lesson tonight. I'm not tired. I'm bored. All we ever do is lie around and nap. Pika was frustrated. She pushed the ball with her nose a few times, rolling it right in front of Dane's face. Come on, look how cool it is. Right, cool, scoffed Kai, her other brother, from where he lay behind Dane. Pika frowned. This was not working. Fine. I can play a game by myself anyway. She glanced around, looking for inspiration. Her yearling sister, Teba, and her parents, Gree and Lamar, were sleeping under some bushes a few strides away. Although they were asleep, she knew that their senses were alert and they would arise at the slightest danger. Pika took the ball in her mouth and set off up the hillside. Every few steps, she slowed and turned her head, evaluating her distance from the others. At 2 months old, she wasn't supposed to go very far from the den site alone, but she felt safe as long as she could see her family. She knew that she could always yelp, and they would come and help her. She crested the top of a small hill and stopped, dropping the ball onto the ground in front of her. She sat and rubbed her eye with the side of her paw. A burning feeling had started a few days ago, and it didn't seem to be going away. After a good scratch, it felt a little better, and she sighed with relief, looking around her. She stood on a small dirt patch that sloped downhill. Beyond the dirt, on all sides, grew long gold grasses and wildflowers. The large open hillside was dotted with broom and heather, and sloped gently downward to a lush green golf course, where she could see humans walking around and hitting golf balls, a sharp cracking sound punctuating the buzzing of insects. Above these noises, she could hear a low, constant rumble, which her parents told her were cars and trucks on the roads nearby. All that she could see was her home, and she loved it. Behind her was a tall wooden fence with wide slats that marked the edge of the territory. On the other side was where the humans lived. She was fascinated by them and spent long hours in the afternoon with her face pressed up to the holes in the slats, trying to see, smell, and listen to what was life like on the other side. She was impatient to get the chance to explore beyond her home territory, but knew her parents would be furious if she went before they decided she was ready. A bird cawed loudly, breaking her reverie, and she looked down to find the ball. It had disappeared. She ducked her head toward the dirt, looking around for it, sniffing around for it. She couldn't understand where it had gone. She looked around and then spotted a patch of white in the long grass at the bottom of the slope. Surprised, she bounded down the hill and pounced on the ball. She couldn't believe how it had gotten all the way down there. Picking it up again in her mouth, she returned to her original spot, and paying more attention this time, she dropped it in front of her. It rolled downhill, slowly at first, then picking up momentum and bouncing off the small rocks. It came to rest in the long grass at the bottom of the dirt patch. Pika laughed, delighted. She retrieved the ball, running back up the hill with it firmly clutched firmly in her mouth. This time she dropped it and waited a few seconds before bounding after it, trying to trap it in her front paws before it hit the grass. She imagined herself chasing after a sleek, darting rabbit who was doing its best to evade her. She didn't have much success, but tumbling head over heels and rolling down the hill turned out to be pretty fun too. Although she couldn't see clearly out of one eye, she found herself improving her timing as she practiced, and a few times she was able to trap the ball between her paws. She lost track of time as she played, running and pouncing. She began to feel quite hot and tired and decided to try one more time. She dropped the ball from the top of the hill and waited a couple seconds to let it pick up momentum. However, before she could set off after it, a small, scrawny, gray body hurtled past her, flying through the air after the ball. She froze when she realized that it was another young coyote, quite a bit smaller than her. His short legs pedaled quickly, and his thin muscles bunched up as he pounced on the ball. Trapping it cleanly between his paws, he fell sideways and slid down the rest of the hill, scrambling up and jumping to retrap the ball as it escaped. Hey! Pika was impressed. He may be small, but he was clearly more agile than she was. Hey, he said cockily, smiling and then bringing the ball back up the hill. Want to race? Pika hesitated. She knew that she wasn't supposed to interact with strange coyotes. Who are you? Scruff, I just live in the forest over there. With his nose, Scruff pointed at a large forested area on the far side of the golf course. Pika sniffed him carefully and realized that she recognized the smell from the boundary between the golf course and the forest, where her family's home territory ended. She was surprised. Her parents hadn't told her that there was a family with pups her age nearby. Pika knew that other coyotes could be dangerous, but this one didn't look too scary. His thin torso was covered by a patchy gray-brown fur coat. He had several tufts of brown fur that stuck straight up between his ears, giving him a kind of goofy look. He held the golf ball in his mouth, his eyes asking her to play with him. Pika smiled back. She liked the look of him. He looked fun, and she was eager to try her speed against his. Fine, let's go. She watched as he dropped the ball and began to tumble away from him. Ready, set, go! She yelled as she pushed past him and raced after the ball. She felt an impact as he collided with her from the side, trying to gain positioning, and they both ended up somersaulting down the hill, missing the ball entirely. As soon as her body lost momentum, she jumped up, looking for the bright white object. She blinked a few times, her vision blurry, then noticed a spot of white behind him. She took a leap, clearing his body, reaching for the white with her paws. She felt only grass, and looking more closely, saw that it was only a patch of white flowers. Ha! You lose, he laughed from behind her. Fine, best of three. Pika was headed back up the hill, Scruff on her heels, when suddenly an alarm bark ran across the hillside. It was Taba, her older sister from a previous litter, and her bark was sharp and angry. Pika looked down the hill guiltily and saw her whole family at attention, tails raised, staring at her. She could just make out a low growl, probably her father, Lamar. She turned to Scruff and poked at him with her nose. You're not allowed here. You should probably go. Scruff smiled at her. All right, thanks. It was fun. Maybe see you around. What's your name? Pika. Okay, Pika. See you soon. She watched him lope back toward the forest that marked the boundary of her family's territory. She couldn't believe that a coyote so young and scrawny would be allowed to come and go so freely. Would he be in trouble too? Before she could think about it, she heard her mother, a distant but angry bark. Pika, get back here now. Pika knew she was in trouble. Sighing, she headed back to the den, stopping to tuck the golf ball between a bush along the way so she could find it again. She loped back as slowly as she could, putting off the inevitable lecture. She arrived in front of her parents, dropped her tail submissively, her ears pressed back against her head as she dropped it low. I'm sorry. You have no idea of the danger you just put yourself in, Lamar's voice was stern. But he was just small and... Pika, Greed cut her off. Lamar is right. You don't know anything about that other coyote. You can't talk to him, and you have to let us know if he ever crosses that line again. But he's not dangerous, Pika argued, not understanding how the fun little coyote could represent a danger to her. He might be. How do you know? Coyotes outside our family are never our friends. That is the rule. Greed's bark was angry now. From now on, don't go so far away on your own. Pika sighed, turning away. Suddenly, she felt her mother give her a sharp nip on her side. She yelped in pain. Pika, are you taking this seriously? Yes, Mom, Pika responded quickly. He just seemed nice. Her mom looked at her sternly. Then frowning, she asked, Pika, is your eye still bothering you? A bit. All right. Go back to the den site and rest up. You have a big hunt tonight, and you've already had a lot of excitement today. I'll be over in a minute to wash your eye again. Oh, Mom, it's fine, said Pika quickly, dreading her mother's rough tongue on such a sensitive area. It's not fine, Pika. You need that eye to heal, or you'll never learn to hunt properly. Go now. I'll be there soon. Pika knew she couldn't push her mother any further and walked to the den area, curling up under a bush to wait. And that's end of chapter 2, Play. Now, compare and contrast the two families that we've seen so far. And it's one of those kind of things that oftentimes it's true for humans as well. That sometimes it seems like other people get to have more fun or they get more things going on. But there's often things behind every story. And it's important to just learn that your situation isn't necessarily as bad or as good or whatever it is you might think of it as it is. There's always things that we never see to take consideration for. Anyway, enjoy it, and we'll hope to see your writing on this soon. Goodbye, this is Mr. Bob, and we'll talk to you next time.